Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of In the Zone. This is episode 120. And before we kick things off here, we got a jam-packed episode of this podcast today. I'm Giancarlo Aulino here with Anthony Pagniello, co-host, Chris Martelli, the other co-host. Before we get into this, guys, there's been some talk on the radio airwaves here in Toronto. Mike Babcock's name's been coming up a lot. Gets a nice new gig in the university level. Jeff O'Neill has been critical in the past, saying he's talked to 5 people who say he's a bad guy. And he let his thoughts be known. He's not softening on this. So we got a special guest here today because it's time for Mikey's Minute. Happy to be joined by him. We're going to start things off. First, Mikey, it's been a while. Congratulations on the new gig. How you doing?
Well, it's been a minute, boys. I've been doing good, boys. What's going on?
So we're doing good. Podcast is rolling here. I want to just start things off here with Jeff O'Neill's comments. He's been critical of you since you got fired from the Leafs. Called you a bad guy. What is your response to that?
Well, I think he's taking it a little personal because, he grew up a Leafs fan and he obviously didn't cut it here in Toronto. So he sees what a good job that I did and then how the way things ended. And, he's taking on personal shots. I mean, I really don't appreciate it.
Yeah, Babcock, I know that you're very thankful for getting that opportunity and the University of, I think it was Michigan or Minnesota, whatever. You have a job, it's cool. But what are your thoughts on moving away from the NHL level to more of an amateur type setting? And do you think you'll ever be back in the NHL?
It's the University of Saskatchewan, but that's all right. When you're Mike Babcock and you have the resume that I do, coaching Team Canada and coaching Mitchie and Zachy for all these years, I'm very positive I'll be back in the show. But for now, we've just got to coach the youngins and teach them the way how to play the game properly, the way that Jeff O'Neill never learned how to play. So that's all I've been doing today, boys.
Any training regimens you're teaching them? Like these little punks that come in, they see Mike Babcock, they probably chirp you saying, hey, you got fired from the big time. You're here at the little leagues. What are your response to those little brats that come in there?
Well, nothing out of the ordinary. I just stick to what I've always done. I just teach them to set the alarm to 3:30 in the morning, get to the arena, run pick 17 laps around the fucking rink, and, just teach them to work hard and love their family. And then, follow the process, and then hopefully we'll be champions.
Wow, that's awesome. Thanks for your time, Mikey. We'll see you soon.
It's always a pleasure, boys.
That is Mike Babcock. Oh, my goodness. He was not having it. Pagniello, I think you just missed Mikey coming in here. What are your thoughts on what you heard there?
Man, always got to keep it down. He's talking to a legend over here. I always miss him, though. It's too bad.
I know. Man. Well, there's Mikey there. Just waving at Mikey. Goodbye, Mikey. Well, we're going to go back now to the pod. We're going to kick things off here because on Monday Night Raw, guys, last week we talked about The Miz being champion. Unfortunately, it was only 1 week. This week, the big man, the almighty, Bobby Lashley, wins a WWE Championship. First time in his career. Pagniello, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Lashley winning that WWE title?
Man, it was awesome. It was really the only takeaway from Raw. I just loved everything about it. I love how it started with The Miz, just classic antics, trying to get away from it, trying to acquire Drew McIntyre's help. Gets counted out the first time around when they started the match. And then in the second time around, Lashley just fucking destroyed him. Just the fashion he won the WWE Championship in. I think it's a sign of things to come for what we're going to see with him as the champion. So 17 years in the making. Oh, a beauty picture right there. Standing over the Miz. Well deserved. He's put up with a lot of shit. This time last year around this time, he was fucking married to Lana, having a wedding, closing the show. And now he's standing tall there at the WWE Championship. So, yeah, it's great to see.
Yeah, it's great to see. The only problem is I really hate how they utilize the Money in the Bank briefcase. I know it was an emergency thing, I guess, for them to take it off of Otis, and they changed the plans, and then The Miz came out, and it made sense for him to cash in on Drew and win the title. But we praise this guy for, he hasn't had the belt in 10 years, and then he literally has it for a week. So that kind of sucks. But like I said last week, Bobby Lashley's momentum was just at an all-time high, and we all knew that this was coming. As soon as the match was announced, when he pinned Strowman last week, I knew exactly what was going down, and Raw was basically all about this, and I love the build for it. He tweeted about it, I think, after last week, saying that, my time is next week, and it came. And it was very entertaining. The Miz coming out and running out and getting counted out, I thought was absolutely hilarious. I think that was probably my favorite part of Raw. He just goes in and runs out and leaves. My stomach hurts. All the excuses in the book. And the weird thing about this whole championship win is they kind of made him look like a face, Lashley, and it makes no sense. But I really like it for him. He's the third black champion now in history. You had The Rock, who's half black, and then you had Kofi Kingston and now Bobby Lashley. So I don't know how long this reign is going to last. I really think at Mania, you're still going to have Drew McIntyre win. But I love it for Lashley. And as for The Miz, just keep trucking, buddy. As long as you have those titles, your resume already speaks for itself. 2-time Grand Slam champion. Only guy to ever do that. So kudos to The Miz for being a good sport. And he's probably going to have to put Bad Bunny over come WrestleMania.
Oh, man. The Miz, though, I think he deserves a lot of credit for this. Like, he plays that chicken shit heel role perfectly. Like, the way he came out and the way he won the title, and then this week he's trying to, like, postpone the match as much as possible. And then when in the ring, too, they made Bobby Lashley look just like a killer. Miz trying to get one over on him. It didn't work. He just stares like he knows he's going to get killed. And Lashley goes over here. And I'm kind of bummed, though, because I think this could have been a huge moment at WrestleMania. Not full crowd, but like 20,000 people. It would have been perfect for Lashley if he got the win over the Miz at Mania. Had a fatal 4-way with Brock and Drew, but I see what they did. Why they did this. Unfortunately, Miz has other plans with Bad Bunny, Damian Priest, and John Morrison. So that poor guy got demoted here. But it's good to see Lashley in the big time as a champion. What are you guys' thoughts on the Hurt Business now on Raw, having all the gold?
Not surprising. Yeah, go for it.
I just remember when they first started, and everyone just thought it would be a joke because it was MVP, and then no one was doing anything with Cedric and Shelton, and then Lashley, we all know where he was, and just to see where they've all come now, man, they've carried the tag division like they can't really. They look unstoppable. Like Shelton and Cedric, they haven't lost in I don't know how long, and then Lashley just turning into an absolute killer recently. So business is definitely booming over there.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys that come back, and when they switch their role, it's necessarily super successful. Like, we've seen guys come back as from superstars to managers, and it kind of hasn't worked out, but MVP comes back. I think he returned at the Rumble last year, and we were all excited, and then, he started kind of diminishing as an in-ring performer, and then he became a manager, and then this faction started, and I just love the heel turn. As soon as Cedric turned heel and kind of joined forces with them, I knew that something special was going to happen here. I knew that, creative had a lot of faith in this group, and I'm not surprised that they all have the titles now. I still think eventually they're going to lose it to probably the New Day down the line. I still see the New Day winning a couple more titles before they disband, but this has been incredible. I really love it as well for Shelton Benjamin. This is a guy who hasn't been around for a while, and he comes back and he wins gold, and so they kind of have similar stories when you really think about it. Lashley, MVP, and Shelton, they're all kind of in that same boat where at the time when they were potentially at the peak of their careers athletically, they were not getting enough, and now it's happy to see that all these guys are holding titles and they're relevant with the product. So kudos to the Hurt Business for sure.
Oh yeah, too late. MVP, just the effect he had on Lashley. Like, we were unfortunately seeing him and Lana. It wasn't working. They desperately needed to end that. And then MVP came, and a month later, him and Drew were going at it where you could have actually see Lashley winning the title at that time when they were in the Performance Center. They didn't go with it. Then they had Randy win the title, which kind of, now looking at it, now that he's not facing Edge, doesn't really make sense. But with Bobby now holding that title, do you think we'll have a rematch with The Miz at the next pay-per-view? Or do you think they should just go right away with Drew at Fastlane and then bring Brock into the mix at Mania?
I think they'll get it over with on a Raw. Honestly, I don't know if they'll waste that on a pay-per-view, just because you kind of see where Lashley. It looks like he's going to take off right now, and the Miz. Yeah, I just feel like he's going to be inserted into that other tag team bullshit. So, little fan. I think he's eventually going to take on Lesnar. That's still like I'm reaching on that one. But I think that those are the eventual plans for Lashley.
Yeah, I want to say no to that as well. I don't see The Miz and Lashley being appealing enough for Fastlane. No offense to them, but like we just saw it on Raw, it was a squash. And what makes us believe it'll be any different at a pay-per-view? I mean, unless they want to do Morrison and The Miz versus Lashley for the title, then like that can maybe work, but I really don't see The Miz taking on Bobby Lashley making any sense. Just I feel like for WrestleMania they want to groom Lashley as that dominant monster heel champion, and then if you're going up against a guy like The Miz, you're gonna get cheered. So I feel like they don't want to take that approach. So I don't know if it's gonna be Drew McIntyre at Fastlane. I really don't want to see that. Maybe you could even have Lashley just not wrestle at Fastlane and be like, yeah, I had my title match on Raw. Like, I'm good. I'm going to rest for Mania and this and that. And that could just bring more heel heat. So I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't even see Lashley wrestle at Fastlane, because I'm thinking about the opponents right now, and there's not really any other than Drew McIntyre. So right now I'll say Lashley takes Fastlane off, and I want to see Drew versus Bobby at WrestleMania, and probably what Pagniello said, probably we'll see Lesnar soon.
Yeah, wouldn't mind it. Just the way that The Miz, unfortunately, has been booked, the backstage stuff with Bad Bunny. I don't know. It kind of makes The Miz come off more of as a face. Like, do you think this is going to backfire in WWE's face when they see WrestleMania, like the crowd's back? Do you think they'll actually turn on the product and use that to start cheering Miz and Morrison, and will end up ruining their whole experiment with Bad Bunny?
I'll say no. I'll say I still think, as long as Damian Priest is in Bad Bunny's corner, I don't see the fans particularly booing them. I just think, yeah, like when you think of guys that really are heels, but they can't be hated, like The Miz, Ziggler, AJ, now I guess Bobby, because a lot of people are actually cheering him and they love what he's done. So those type of guys, you really can't, like, I still think majority of the people hate The Miz more than like him. But at the same time, I've been a huge fan of his since like 2009. So I'm going to cheer him regardless. I know Pagniello's going to cheer him regardless. He's comedic. He's awesome. He's funny. So I think whatever he does, it's going to work. It just really sucks to see him go from, time after time being relevant for so long, winning a IC title, winning a US title, winning a tag team title, winning the WWE title. And then come WrestleMania the last couple of years, his moments have kind of fallen short. Like, if you go back the last Mania match that I remember was obviously the triple threat with him, Finn, and Seth. That was a great opener to WrestleMania. But other than that, like, he faced Cena and Nikki Bella in that tag team match. He surprisingly lost to Zack Ryder and then won it the next night on Raw. He faced Shane McMahon. Like, there's just like a lot of times this guy has been kind of screwed over the last couple of years at WrestleMania, and this year it's going to be the exact same thing. So that's kind of why I feel like fans would cheer him. We want to see him do a little more come WrestleMania instead of, Shane and Bad Bunny and being a part of all these comedic type matches. Like, you do need them at WrestleMania, don't get me wrong, for the bathroom breaks, the entertainment, but like, this guy's a 2-time Grand Slam champion. Like, this guy deserves a lot more than Bad Bunny. I
think I hope they get this over with at Fastlane. Like, I'm fine if they do the tag match. I just want them to do it at the next pay-per-view because there's still another, once Fastlane, like 2-3 weeks away from now, something like that. Then you my fantasy booking, you could have Morrison cost them the match, and then the Miz just fucking turns on him, and then you could have, you just brought up the Miz's Mania moments. He gets shafted some years. You could have the Miz go at it with John Morrison, his longtime tag team partner, and then there's your fucking solid one-on-one match. So I hope they get this Bad Bunny stuff over with now, because I don't want them to drag it out for the next fucking 2 months. And I really want to see Miz versus Morrison. That would be awesome for WrestleMania.
I have a bad feeling this is going to drag on. Just the way they built this whole thing. And Elimination Chamber, when he's like, oh, where's your title? I'm the champion, and he slapped him. And then the Miz took that personally. He goes and wins a title. Kind of came off as a face there. So this is going to be, I think it's going to blow up in their face. I really do. I think once the crowd is in there, they're going to end up cheering the Miz. It's going to be like Cena versus Miz all over again. That tag match, that mixed tag bullshit they use for a reality show. I think I see the exact same thing here. The crowd's going to hijack the match. Poor Damian Priest is going to get lost in the shuffle here. He's going to get the win, and no one's going to care. So I hope for his sake they have something planned. But moving on to another pay-per-view here. Just touch on this. AEW is having an event on Sunday, and Sting is back in the ring. So clearly they're doing some advancements in medical science, because 5 years later, at 62 years old, he's cleared to compete, recovered from spinal injuries. So I don't know, WWE's falling far behind. What are you guys' thoughts on Sting getting back in the ring?
It's hilarious. It's actually so jokes. I never thought that this guy would come back, just based off of the last match he had that I can remember. That was like 6 years ago against Seth Rollins, and the match was a dud. We all knew that was going to be a dud. I didn't expect, like, at the time Rollins was at the peak of his career. Like, he was just doing outstanding stuff, being the double champion and doing all that. But man, Sting just looked terrible in that match. I hope, if anything, he's really trained himself, kind of like what Undertaker went through from like 2014 to last year, where he really was trying so hard to stay relevant, but he wasn't putting enough work in on his body. And you could easily tell with the last 5 Mania matches, no offense to him, but they were so bad, the last like 5 Manias for him, and other than last year. But when it comes to Sting and you look at the opportunities and the wrestlers that are, he can go up against, he has Cody Rhodes, he has, MJF, who's going to be probably one of the best heels in all of professional wrestling, if not already. You have Darby Allin, who's a guy that he can easily either align with or go up against in a storyline. So he does have a lot of options there, and a lot of mat-based wrestlers that can really put him over. But we were also saying that about Seth Rollins in 2015. So it's a big risk for AEW to put a 60-whatever-year-old in this situation. But if it's Sting, he can just limit his movements and stick to his character. I think it could work out.
I know we make jokes all the time, like, he's so old, he can't get back in the ring. Like, he's got to find a different role for him. But, like, low-key, that's amazing. It's been 6 years, and he's in his fucking 60s now, like you said, and he's getting back at it. Like, you see this around the wrestling world with Daniel Bryan coming back after all these years, and Edge coming back fucking, I don't know how many years later, 10 years later. Certain guys you never thought would get back in the ring, and then Sting is right back at it. So I just hope he doesn't get hurt. But yeah, it's good for him that he's back at it again.
Yeah, 60's a new 40 for AEW. Tully Blanchard's wrestling on Wednesday. 67.
Oh,
but like with Sting, this is risky. I hope he doesn't get hurt here, because he is in his 60s, and taking a bump at that age is probably different. Like, credit where it's due, when he was in his late 40s in TNA wrestling, he was still pretty jacked. He can still do it. He was like just as good. Some of the best matches of his career were over there against Kurt Angle, AJ, those guys. But he's 62 years old now. It's different. He's wrestling a street fight. Brian Cage, Ricky Starks. Not the kind of style you want at that kind of age, but all the power to him. But other than that, you have Kenny Omega here and Jon Moxley in a barbed wire death match, exploding barbed wire death match, whatever the hell they're calling it. What are you expecting in this?
A fucking barn burner. They've been putting on some amazing work recently. John kind of went from, I don't know if you want to say stale, whatever word you want to put on it, and that just kind of flipped over the last couple of months, and he's been solid. And then may have something to do with Kenny winning the title. Everything just seems so much fresh now. So, I mean, fuck, these two get together under any circumstances, you're in for a classic. So you throw in those fucking crazy ass AEW stipulations. Well, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, Jon Moxley's a sick fuck. So this is going to work out regardless. Kenny Omega as well has gone through hell. We've seen it before. But I said this for what? They came out in 2019 AEW. I said from the get-go that Kenny Omega should have been the champion. If Jon Moxley didn't have a bad reign, and it was freaking terrible. He was stale as hell. Wasn't doing enough. His matches were boring, and now he's going up against the champion, Kenny Omega, that everybody wanted to see. So I'm very, very rejuvenated. I'm not saying Chris Jericho was the wrong guy to have the title. His run was incredible. Him being the first AEW champ made the most sense. He was very well known everywhere around the world, so that made sense. But when they gave it to Moxley, I kind of felt like it was kind of forced just because he left WWE. It was fresh. Like, okay, we're going to give this guy the title right away. He was a staple with the Shield in WWE. But now that you have Kenny Omega, the cleaner, the top dog in AEW, this is going to be an absolute classic. This might be a match of the year candidate, and this might be one of the best matches we see Jon Moxley have. So get ready. It's going to be wild.
As all these partnerships that AEW has now with Impact Wrestling, New Japan now, like we saw New Japan on Impact, they had a tag team over there, Juice Robertson, Dave Finlay. But AEW, there's Kenta, so it looks like the Bullet Club members are slowly coming aboard, the Good Brothers there on AEW. Could you see something where the show ends and they want to end it big with Okada in the ring with Kenny and to set up the match at All Out?
Holy shit. Yeah, that would be ridiculous. That would definitely get the fans buzzing, and WWE would react with Lesnar coming back. So that would be perfect for both companies. I would like to see Okada. He's got one of the most ruthless clotheslines I've ever seen. So Okada versus Kenny, again, we've seen that at Wrestle Kingdom, and it got I think it got 6 out of 5 stars from Dave Meltzer. So as long as they can do that and they can somehow align Okada into this program, whether that means it's after the match or during the match, he can screw over Omega or Moxley. If they do a singles match with Okada and Omega, I feel like they're just doing that to just get the ratings. But how cool would it be if you have Okada, Moxley, and Omega in a triple threat? That's just different. It's fresh. It's new. It brings that mat wrestling that they did at Wrestle Kingdom with a little bit more edge with Moxley there. I feel like a lot of people are saying after this match, that's it for Moxley in the title scene. But if you bring Okada back, oh man, you got to keep Moxley there for at least another pay-per-view.
Perfect.
I dig it. That's good. I know they have their pay-per-view schedule's a little different. Like they have Double or Nothing, usually around May, June. And then All Out's their big one. Do you like this kind of system they have, like quarterly pay-per-view events, one every 3 to 4 months, or do you prefer maybe if they had one every other month or one every month?
I like what they're doing now, every 3-4 months. I feel like WWE should have been doing that the whole time. I just feel like you throw certain things together last second when you have to get ready for a pay-per-view. So when you have time to build for it, it kind of makes the matches more, a little more intense. There's a lot more story behind it instead of just throwing together last second filler matches. So yeah, with every 3-4 months, there's a lot more there's more attention to pay to the story.
Yeah, I agree. They should have been doing that for a long time. I even think every single wrestling promotion should probably have about like 7, 8 at most instead of like 13, 12. But in terms of the quarterly pay-per-views, I think it makes sense in AEW because they're still getting their feet wet. They really have followed a certain structure the first 2 years, and it's been straight up successful, man. Like you have not a lot of matches on the card. I think there's usually about 5, which is respectable. Like, look at what we saw at the Chamber. There was about 5 matches, and yes, it ended early, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I wasn't sitting there for hours on hours on hours. So, yeah, if I'm WWE and I'm looking at this, I would definitely think about it. I know Vince likes, he likes having the pay-per-views, the themed pay-per-views and all that, but it would be definitely more interesting in terms of Raw and SmackDown. I feel like if they got rid of pay-per-views a little bit more, like if they had maybe 7 pay-per-views a year, WWE, then Raw and SmackDowns would feel maybe a little bit more important. You know what I mean? Like if they put out a WWE Championship match or an Intercontinental Championship match on a Raw or on a SmackDown, I feel like that would literally boost their ratings through the roof for that week specifically. So if they're ever in a rating battle, which they are on a weekly basis with at least NXT and AEW, I think they should maybe look at that and say, let's reduce the pay-per-views so Raw and SmackDown could feel not only as just an important show for everybody, but for even the champions as well. It can bring a little bit more unpredictability to the show.
Yeah, I like it. I'll have to wait and see how Sunday's event takes place and what happens there. Hopefully nothing crazy happens where it'll put a bad light on their promotion, but hopefully something positive. Before we get into hockey, just want to start off with praising a guy I got in fantasy and hoop on the court, LaMelo Ball. He started that whole return there with the Charlotte Hornets. They came back, the big comeback against the Kings. LaMelo putting up stats. He's going for that Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to win it. Just what are your thoughts on the way LaMelo's been playing in his first year in the league? Ballin' out.
Yeah, the new look Charlotte Hornets, and he is a very big reason why they're successful. They're in that 8-9 spot, I think, but man, he's put them back on the map. They're guard heavy over there. They're very fun to watch. House of Highlights post fucking like 6 plays of him a game every time they're on. So he is a dynamic player already. I think he's a fucking shoo-in for Rookie of the Year. Edwards is a distant second. Yeah, man, he's been awesome. He's been a joy.
Yeah, he's been the best rookie by far. You look at last year when we had when Zion was hurt last year and Ja Morant was killing it. That it's kind of like how I view it right now. Ja Morant was my Rookie of the Year from like December on, and I'm looking at it right now. And LaMelo Ball's stats as a rookie, I think he's putting up like 19, 6, and 6. His shooting percentages are way better than I expected, especially from 3. He's looking very, very confident at times. And I love Anthony Edwards, what he's done the last couple weeks, but he's still showing a lot of inconsistencies in shooting and playmaking and shot creating. And then you look at LaMelo, he just comes in and he's already making teammates better. He's already boosted Miles Bridges' stats. He's boosted, guys like Rozier sometimes while he's on. Because I've even seen LaMelo kind of come in and sneaky be like a 3. Like they would put Rozier, Monk, and LaMelo Ball on at the same time. And I think they put LaMelo at the 3 just for the quick pace. And I love what LaMelo Ball's been doing. He's really been balling out, and he's by far the best Ball brother out of all of them.
I got to put respect on Lonzo's name there. I think he's not done. But speaking of Zion, you brought him up. He's also been on a tear there. Where do you think the Pelicans will finish when this whole season's done?
Ooh. They'll be in that like playoff, what's it called, the play-in round. think I still think there's another month away before we start to see some separation in the standings. They're kind of like, they're with the Mavs and the Warriors. They're kind of in that range, but seeing what Zion's done, like he kind of went from, people are way too quick to judge. He went from like overrated to underrated, and the guy's played like not 50 fucking games in the NBA. I don't know how that happened so quickly. He's only 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, and he just bullied guys. The guys in their fucking mid 30s, he just sends them back. It's fucking crazy to see how strong he is, and he's so skilled for, oh man, you get him to like look at the NHL, how many young guys are just taking over the league. The NBA is the exact same way. The young guys are taking over. Zion and guys like Luka and Zion are at the forefront of it. So if they get into the playoffs, he is the fucking main reason why.
Yeah, I wanted to say Brandon Ingram was their best player this year, but I'm wrong. It's Zion. Zion, what I saw, I want to say, I remember, I think it was Christmas Day when they came back, and he looked amazing, Zion, in that game. And there have been times where he's slumped, but I want to say the last month he's basically put up like Giannis type numbers, except with a little bit reduced rebounds. He's putting up like 28, 8, and 5, and he's only getting better. His free throw percentage is only, I think, at like 70% too, and he goes to the line a lot. He, like Pagniello said, he bullies these guys hard. Like he will go in the paint and you cannot stop him. I think when all is said and done, I still have guys like Tatum and Doncic above him, but it's getting a lot closer. I still think Tatum, I still think he has a little bit more gear to him. I think he could still average around 28. But in terms of offensive potential, Zion, man, this guy might be turning into the next Shaq. Like the stuff that he's doing right now, you just can't guard him. Like even what we've seen with Joel Embiid, there's just some games he goes on the court and you just can't guard him. That's just how it is. So Zion being as good and improved as he has been, and Brandon Ingram consistently now putting up 23 points a game, as well Lonzo. I said that LaMelo's the better brother, but Lonzo's also getting better as well. I think he's averaging 17, 6, and 6. So, I mean, the Pelicans are right there. If they can start becoming a little more consistent, they could pass San Antonio. They can pass maybe Dallas. So, yeah, they'll be in the play-in round. But if they make the playoffs, they may be a big X factor for this postseason. But for now, all eyes are on Zion, and he has not disappointed at all.
Do you think the Pelicans are good enough to shock maybe a top team? Let's say they get in the play-in round and they're matched up with Utah or the Lakers or Clippers. Do you think they have what it takes to take them out first round?
With Lakers and Clippers, probably not. I think they'd give them a bit of a run because, let's face it, it's Zion and Ingram. They'll do some damage, but Utah, that would be an interesting one, wouldn't it? I don't think they'll finish first in the West by the end of it, but I think if they were going to upset anyone, it would probably be Utah. But yeah, I think either way, they're still playing with house money just because their guys are so young and no one's really expecting a whole lot from the Pelicans. Like, I think people expect them to make the playoffs, but even if they do, if they got bounced first round, everyone would be like, yeah, that's a good experience for the kids, and then they'll be back the next year. So I still think they're good to go for this year regardless of what happens. But if they were to just make the playoffs in general, that's a huge win for them.
Yeah, I see them doing damage, actually. If they were to make the playoffs, I don't want to say conference final, but I think they could easily knock off Utah just based off of the athleticism that they've shown, the resilience. They continuously battle every night. The other night, I think they beat the Bucks, so that was a huge win for them. Zion, for the most part, was guarding Giannis, and he did a pretty good job. As long as this guy can continue to improve his defensive game, Zion, and Brandon Ingram just consistently is that constant offensive threat. Lonzo's that, pass first guard, but he could still drain the threes. Then, we've said this for a while now. Utah, they're in first place, but I don't see them as that top tier contender. Same thing with Denver last year. I think Denver came in second last year, and everyone was saying, yeah, it's Denver, but like they're not a second seeded team. They're not looked at as that. So I think the same with Utah when it comes to that. But man, I don't want to face Zion in the postseason. I don't want to do that.
Well, yeah, that's NBA talk there. Those are two of the bigger stories coming out. Zion, LaMelo's play. Even like New Orleans really stepping up. I had them in top 5 last year if he was playing the whole season. They're kind of close if they keep winning, but have to wait and see on that. But onto the rink, because some interesting stat came out the other day. The Leafs' odds to win the Stanley Cup were 3.
Oh, God.
So, yeah, are they overreacting here? Should they slow their roll? What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, my God. Relax. Y'all got to relax here. The fans, they all want the cup. We get it. We want the cup. We get it. But we're in this division. I'm not trying to bash all the Canadian teams, but we're far and away better than half of the division, and it's not even close. You're looking at what we've been doing. We've lost 4 regulation games all year. All of a sudden now we have Hutch and Campbell getting shutouts. Freddie can't even buy a shutout. So I mean, like, this is hilarious if you think about it. You look at, I remember at the time I thought, okay, we have Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Vancouver, all teams that can, give us a run for the money. But man, Vancouver's been disappointing. We've shut out Edmonton back-to-back games. What the hell? And then you have Winnipeg, they're starting to gel now, but they were also inconsistent early on in the season. They did that big shakeup with Laine, so the team's chemistry definitely got a little messed up at that time. But now Dubois on the top line, he's flourishing there. But I'm gonna say right now, there's no team like the Leafs in our division. So for now, with all these Stanley Cup odds and the Leafs being one of the favorites, we just got to pump the brakes with that. We still haven't faced teams like Tampa, Boston, Philly, any of these teams that, they're up and coming. Even a Carolina team, they're pretty scary at times. Florida as well has been rolling. So, I mean, the odds, they're there because we're in first place. We've had 4 regulation losses, but our division's a little weak. So that's all I got to say about the odds.
Even if we were undefeated from the start of the year, I would say pump the brakes just because it's the fucking Leafs. And it's just always there at the back of our minds, like, oh yeah, it's good now, but something will go wrong. But this year's kind of a different feeling. I don't know. It's fucking like 17-4 or something like that, where we lost Ottawa twice and everyone fucking threw a fit. But like, you look at it and we're like, what was it? 8 points up on Edmonton, who's in second place, and then it's the rest follow. So yeah, the Leafs are just dominating right now.
It's one of those things where they're setting the fan base up for failure, getting their heart breaking. Remember the lockout? This is like the last time we had a shortened year. Phil Kessel was tearing it up. They had Lupul, JVR finally coming into his own, Matt Fradden, Grabo, Kuhlman, MacArthur lighting it up as a second unit. And then all of a sudden, Game 7 happened. So I'm not liking this. I think they're going to set everyone up for bad news, a bad awakening. If the Leafs get out of the Canadian division, which is a luxury, do you think that they'll get swept against one of those teams like a Tampa?
No. No. We won't get swept, I don't think. Freddie has always been pretty decent in the playoffs. I love our offense this year. Matthews and Marner, I think, have taken a leap, if that even makes sense. They've gotten even better. William Nylander, all of a sudden now, I think he has 7 goals in the last 2 weeks, so he's also been lighting the lamp. We have leaders like Thornton and Simmons, who we've needed them on this team for like the last 4 or 5 years. I don't want to say that like we're going to go to the Stanley Cup final, but I don't see us getting swept to any of those teams, even though we haven't faced them. It's definitely going to be weird because, when you go in the playoffs, not only is it a different season, but you're going to go up against a team you haven't played in a year. So it's going to be interesting once the playoffs amends and they start, but I don't see them getting swept by any of those teams.
Oh my God! If they did though, that would everyone would look at the Canadian Vision and be like, "What a fucking joke!" Because the Leafs dominated that, and then the second they play someone else, they out the door. But you know what? You know what's scary though? You look at our division last year in the Atlantic. Florida's like 13-4. They're leading that division. Tampa's got the same record. Boston's only lost 5 times. So, and then there's been Buffalo and Detroit, whatever. But like, if we were in the same division as last year, do you think the Leafs would have the same success?
No,
probably
no.
Not saying 17-4, but like, would Matthews and Marner be top of the league, and we'd be floating around there? You don't think so?
I don't think Matthews has always shown, his offensive scoring. Like we've seen that, like he had 40 goals in the first year of his career. He's averaging the most even strength goals of all time. So I mean, I don't see the stats really taking a huge dip, but I do see him taking a bit of a dip. Marner, I think, was it 2 years ago he had 94 points, so I could see him maybe getting around that. But yeah, they're on pace for like 100 points. Matthews is on pace for 65 goals. I mean, yeah, it would definitely go down a bit, but these guys are superstars. These two guys are probably, I don't want to say, actually, yeah, you know what? I will say it. They're probably 2 top 10 players in the game. So, I mean, I love Matthews. I love Marner. But again, like you just mentioned, like Florida, Tampa, Boston have all been problems this year. I think we would probably be around second, third. I still think Tampa would be the top team, but yeah, it would be. I just would love to see how we would be in the old Atlantic Division. I think it would be very interesting, especially with Campbell coming up and being a lot better, and Freddie actually struggling a little more this season than usual.
Yeah, I think Matthews, like last year, I remember everyone was talking about, he shows up some games and some games he doesn't, but if you go by that, he's still on pace for over 50 at that point. So I still think he'd be a 50-goal guy regardless. It's just how many wins the Leafs would get before a team would figure out their pattern and they have a bad game. I think it would be more often. They probably have 10 losses by now. So I think just because the schedule the way it is, they've been taking advantage. And I still think they're top 3, though. Toronto, Boston, Tampa, and then maybe Florida and Boston battling out for the 3rd spot. But if you're going by just the way they played, I think easily Toronto is past Boston.
Do you guys know how the playoffs are going to work this year? Like, if we finish first, who the fuck would we play in, like, the wild card situation? Because I don't even know if they specified that yet.
I think it's a second-place Canadian team or a third. I think they get a... I know it's a Canadian division in the first round. I just don't know if they plan on going with that after the first round.
I think we'd face the 4th seed in our division, so it would be four of the 7 teams. 4 of the 7 teams, I think, make it in our division. Either 4 or 3. I think I think at the end of the year they're going to go off of standings and points, not by. Like, I don't think they're going to do 4 and 4 in each division. I think they're just going to go like the top 8 teams. So they're going to do the top 3 teams for sure in our division, and then the other 5, whether it's all 5 in that division or 4 and 4 or 5 and 3. It's just going to go, I think, down to that. I think we're probably going to face. I'm going to predict it now. I think we're probably going to face Calgary if I'm kind of looking down into the future. I don't see Calgary being a big problem, but even though they've shut us out a couple times, but yeah, it's very hard to kind of read how the playoffs would go. It's completely different. You look at, like, I think I watched the other day, it was Philly versus Pittsburgh or Philly versus Washington. And just the way they play has just been completely different than the North Division. Like, our division is all based off of offense. There's some games it's 7-4. There's other games it's 1-0. Whereas it's more consistent in every other division. You have more of the 3-2, the 4-3, the 4-2. Whereas in our division, I don't know if you guys have noticed, we blew a 5-1 lead, 6-5, 8-4, 7-3. Like, there's a lot more scoring in our division, so that's definitely going to change the way our divisions look. But I agree with you guys. When we look back at it, if any of these Canadian teams go in the playoffs and struggle, they're going to say that this division was an absolute fail.
Finally get fucking home ice advantage, and there's going to be 0 people there to see it.
Just like last year with Columbus, and they blew it.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Damn.
That's how it goes.
In hockey, I know before the season there were some rumors going out that Patrick Kane, who's playing amazing right now, there were some rumors that Florida and Chicago had a deal in place for him. Just the way he's been playing now, Chicago where they are and Florida where they are, could you see that actually going through this time around?
Nah. Nah, it's Patrick Kane. He's not getting traded. I don't see it happening. Unless they give up Barkov and some other player, I don't see it happening. Like what we talked about last week, where it would have to be like a franchise for franchise player. So, like, I think last week we talked about Zibanejad and Eichel potentially going the other ways, and obviously you have to add picks because Eichel's the better player. But I feel like if they were to drop Kane, I mean, if I'm a Chicago fan, that's just mind-boggling. What he's done for their franchise. I mean, at that point, Kane would probably have to be the guy to go up to them and say, I want to get traded. But I just feel like he's too loyal for that. And the story that's come up with Taves, you know, not being able to play, and he's had some illness, I feel like even next year he's going to be even more motivated to stay with the Blackhawks. So I don't see him getting dealt unless it's a massive haul coming back for Chicago.
Jack Eichel?
Eichel, yeah. It's just a matter of time. But I feel like the Hawks, I don't know, they're kind of in the middle of the pack right now. They're doing well, but I didn't think they'd be ahead of Columbus or Nashville. And you see what Kane gets written off. I don't know why. Like, he produces every single year. And then, like, fans, just a general idea will be like, oh, Kane's going to slow down this year. Why is he going to slow down? He's shown zero intentions of slowing down. All he does is he's a point per game player, and he's fucking second or third in the league right now. So he's dragging DeBrincat along with him, and the Hawks have been pretty solid. So if I was a Hawks fan and they traded Kane, I'd probably have a fucking panic attack.
Yeah, I don't see him getting dealt, like, just based off of what you said. I remember 5-6 years ago when that allegation came out with him, and he didn't have the best postseason that year, and everyone was starting to say, okay, you know, he's like, I think at the time he was 28, and they're like, okay, he's already won the cups, he's played a lot of hockey, he's probably tired, he's probably not. So they were just making excuses for him, and then he came out and dropped 106 points and won the Hart Trophy and all that. So this guy he's all time. He's the top 100 player easily. I think he's one of the most influential hockey players of all time when you look back at everything and all these young skilled guys coming in, guys like Marner. These guys all look up to Patrick Kane. So if Chicago were to trade him, like, it's just, for me, it's a big why. Like, why would you have to trade a guy like Patrick Kane? He's been with your organization since 2007. He's been giving it his all. He's won multiple cups. I mean, if he's literally going up to them and saying, I want to leave, I need a new scenery, then okay, sure. But I just don't see him being that guy, like going in the dressing room and saying, or going up to the front office and saying, hey, I really want to win again. Like, I need to get out of here. I just don't see him doing that. So I hope number 88 stays with Chicago forever. He's just an icon there. I think this is going to be a hot take, but I think he's the greatest Chicago Blackhawk of all time. So I think he should stay there for his career.
It's a hot take right there. Where do you have then Duncan Keith, Jonathan Taves? Do you have them staying too, or do you think they'll ask for a move?
In terms of guys like Taves and Keith, they're completely different because they're not producing as much as Kane does, and Kane has been a driving force offensively since his rookie season. So Taves, though, has shown glimpses of coming back to life. I think last year he had, what was it, like 80 points. So if this guy can play on the top line with Patrick Kane a couple more years, if guys like Dylan Strome and Kirby Doc, if their development is, a little bit slower than usual, then I don't see them parting ways with Taves. But Duncan Keith, I think, is a different story. I think his contract is now untradeable at this point, and kind of like, look what happened with Seabrook. I think he's in the press box. I think he's on the long-term IR. So it sucks to see guys like that who've been there for time. It happened to them, but I think it's caught up a little bit with Duncan Keith, but with Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane, just like with Malkin and Crosby, what we said last week, I don't see them getting traded.
I think for the most part, though, just because of what the three of those guys have done for that organization, it would still be a situation of, hey, man, let's talk about your future. Let's sit down and talk. You tell me where you want to go. Because they're not just going to fucking do him dirty like that. I think Keith, the stats aren't there anymore, but, he's still top 2 on that team and plays 24 minutes a game. So he's obviously not the same. Taves, yeah, like you said, he'll come back and have one of those statistical years. I think Taves and Kane, he's not the scorer he is, but Taves is in the same boat for me. Their contracts are brutal, but it's still we're not getting rid of you. You come to us if you want to make a change. So those guys have won, 3 Stanley Cups together since 2010. They are iconic in our era, pretty much. We've seen them dominate. So, yeah, Kane's still fucking rolling, but the other two, yeah, we'll see.
Anything else in the NHL you guys want to talk about?
Let's talk about the Buffalo Crappers, because they're crap. Crappy crap.
Oh, God, again.
I just want to say one thing about this team, and I don't know if this is just my interpretation, kind of looking at it in the wrong way, but you're looking at guys like Okposo and Jeff Skinner and guys like Evan Rodriguez playing top 6 minutes, and then you look at their bottom 6 forwards, and it's just a bunch of young guys like Middlestat and Tage Thompson and all these guys that have been trying to make a top 6 role, and you're putting guys like Okposo, Gergensen, Skinner above them. I mean, Skinner, I think, hasn't played in 2 weeks because he's been a healthy scratch. But, I mean, what are your guys' thoughts on the way they kind of bring up their young talent? Other than Eichel and Dahlin, I feel like they haven't really given that, because you know how teams usually, what we did with Robertson when he came up, we put him right away in a top 6 role to boost the confidence, where you have guys like Middlestat and Thompson, they're just floating around playing 8 minutes a night. So do you think that could probably be a problem with Buffalo, or do you just think it's their lineup and they're just not good enough?
It's Taylor Hall's fault.
It's tough with because you brought up Eichel and Dahlin. There are just certain guys that they're way too good. It's not like they're gonna sit. They right away they're in the NHL and they're the focal point of your team. So other than that, because they're usually top 5 in the fucking draft. When you look at all their other players and picks, it just really hasn't. They got Nylander and they got Cozens, and I don't really know what to say. It's just all their young guys just starting to, you look at Florida, the way all their young guys are starting to come together, and they've been together for a while. With Buffalo, it's just kind of gone the opposite way. And when you brought up Skinner and Okposo, they've had their moments in their career, but I just thought of the contracts, how fucking brutal both of those are. And the timing they signed them. I think they each have 1 point, Skinner and Okposo. I don't even know if they have a goal between both of them. So I don't know what the hell they need over there.
Well, first they got to trade Taylor Hall. That's one. That clearly did not work. Low risk, high reward. That was a high risk, no reward situation. They got to get rid of that immediately. So find Edmonton, let them throw something at it, and they can kiss their Stanley Cup dreams goodbye. In terms of Okposo, you know what? If he gets bought out, I would love to see the Leafs get him and reunite him with Johnny T. I think that would be golden, those two together. Let's turn back the clock. Okposo's destined to get bought out, I think. Skinner, you know what, Buffalo, good luck buying that out. I don't think you want to set your franchise back a decade. Just keep him while you can. You signed him. You got to live with it. Or put him in the minors. But, like, they shouldn't have done that. I think immediately when they gave him that contract, they should have saw this coming. Like, this guy's probably a concussion away from retirement. He put up those great numbers that 1 year. I think they should have gave him a bridge deal because now you're forcing your team to basically help get his stats up. You have Eichel there who signed long term. He's regretting that every day. So I think this team's going to rebuild once again. It's unfortunate because you have a generational player like Eichel who wants to win, but you haven't surrounded him. There's too many GM changes, coaching changes. The president has to look at this and get some accountability in the room, get some GMs that know what they're doing, and get his house in order. Stop fucking around in Buffalo.
I just think it sucks. Yeah, I just think it sucks when you look at what's happened with Taylor Hall. This guy won the Hart Trophy 3 years ago on the New Jersey Devils, and this was when they were laughable. Let's be honest here. They were a laughable team 3 years ago for just getting the first pick, and everyone's like, oh my God, the Devils got lucky with the lottery, you know, getting Heischer, blah, blah, blah. Now he's the captain. He's turning into a beauty, but he's already injury prone. But other than that, Taylor Hall, I don't even know if he has any trade value at this point. He has 1 goal in like 24 games. And I don't know if I know he had COVID, and guys like Zibanejad have had COVID, and I guess it's taken a toll on their game. But like, you just won the Hart Trophy not too long ago, and now you can't even score on a line with Jack Eichel. So if I'm an NHL team and I'm really looking at the long scheme of things, this guy's probably going to want a 5-year deal after this year. I don't know, man. I don't know what the market is for Taylor Hall right now. Honestly, I have no idea what it is.
You'll get a 2-year deal from San Jose worth $8 million. I'm blaming it on Buffalo because I don't believe a guy like Taylor Hall has 1 goal in 20 fucking games. There's no fucking way. Okay, you look at I gotta go back to Skinner because it still pisses me off to this day. The second he signed the contract, right away, like me, you, and Chiselli were like, why? Are they actually fucking stupid? They have Eichel and they have Reinhardt for the future. Why do you have to sign this guy and give him $9.5 million? Who are you trying to convince? You're going to need that money going forward when you finish at last place and sign your next first overall pick to that deal. And then, because when he had that 40-goal year, do you guys not remember? He had 2 fucking goals the second half of the season.
Yeah.
And he had 38 by fucking January. Like, oh, well, it still looks good by the end of the year, so we'll give him this money. No, dumbass. You got to sign all your other young guys who are going to be there going forward. And now you're fucked with him and Okposo at the fucking 21 and 22 on your list here in point scoring.
I just love how when they got Taylor Hall in the offseason, everyone was saying, yeah, you know what, they're going to be a playoff team. They're going to be a threat, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, Taylor Hall, good God, I don't know what the hell's gone on with him. Victor Olofsson's another guy. This guy's come out of nowhere. He's been a diamond in the rough, especially for a franchise like Buffalo, and they're still somehow wasting him too. So if I'm Dylan Cozens, I want to get the hell out of there. I mean, I want to be a part of a trade package, but you know who you really have to feel for here is Rasmus Dahlin. This guy gets drafted first overall. He's basically looked at as the next Nick Lidstrom at the time, and this guy comes in here. Pagniello just drops him in fantasy. He has, I think, one of the worst plus minuses in the league at like -17 or something. It's just not working out for him, and his confidence is probably at an all-time low. So if I'm the front office in Buffalo, it's a fire sale come later on in the month for sure.
Oh my God, but look at this team, like, credit to them. Like, they go out, they make some risky moves. Billy Lano, remember that one?
Oh my
Perfect.
God.
They went out and got him. Didn't work out for them. Matt Molson, he's going to turn the team around. Had a nice little season before his career went down the drain. Kyle Okposo, he came off that season with Tavares, same thing. Skinner, concussions. Let's give him a big deal. I don't know what if you can just look at Jack Eichel in this picture right now with Taylor Hall. Can you imagine what he's thinking?
He's not even looking at him. He's looking at the stands like it doesn't matter if there's no fans here. They don't want us to fucking do well. We're not gonna do well. We're not doing anything. But it sucks, man, because Eichel, like since coming in the league, he has been an absolute monster. And the expectations, yes, they've been really high, but I think he's surpassed them. Last year he had a huge season. I think he was like 4th in MVP voting last year. And it's just when you're playing on Buffalo and nothing's going right, his confidence is starting to look kind of he just looks like he's off. And even guys like Eric Stahl, look at him. When he was on the Rangers and he was not producing, he goes to Minnesota. I think we were at Chiselli's house when he got signed. And me, Pagniello, and Chiselli, we look at each other like, that's a good signing. He's going to flourish in Minnesota. It's a quiet – well, it's not the quietest city, but it's more of a humble, hockey town. And he flourished there. He comes to Buffalo and now playing third-line minutes. This guy deserves better as well. So I'll ask this to end it off. Do you guys think that Eric Stahl, Taylor Hall, and Jack Eichel are all dealt come the deadline?
What? Stahl, Hall, who else?
And Eichel.
Oh, no, not all three. I think Taylor Hall will just play the Euro because it was a 1-year deal. And then for him, it's like a fuck whatever's on the table, I'll take. But
like a boogie cousin.
Before, yeah, no, it's still tough to say because he won the fucking Hart a few years ago. So there has to be a market for him. There's no way. Eric Stahl, I think he still has some game, given the right situation. Eichel's the biggest fucking wild card. That's your future there. If you're going to trade him, it's going to be a monstrous fucking deal. But you went back to feeling bad for Dahlin. I feel bad for Sam Reinhart. I feel like this is a guy, the second he leaves, he's going to help a team win the cup literally the next year. And I'm going to start fucking laughing in Buffalo when they do.
Well, Reinhardt's a guy, too, that I've looked at for years. I wanted him to be a little bit better offensively. And now all of a sudden, ever since I bashed him, I think 2 weeks ago, he's been tearing it up recently. And, he's not the best player in that draft, far from it. You have guys like Pasternak and Draisaitl and the top 3 in that draft. It's going to be completely different now when we do redrafts. But, I agree with you. Reinhardt is a pro hockey player. He's kind of like a Ryan O'Reilly, not to that extent. But he can help a team win a cup, no doubt about it. And it's definitely not in Buffalo, and it sucks. You have a guy like a Reinhardt. He has that DNA, that IQ, and Eichel with that offensive prowess, and they can't really get anything going. So I don't know, man. I feel like I see all 3 of them getting dealt. I don't know why. Buffalo screams fire sale for me right now.
Yeah, Taylor Hall, I think, is gone. You can pack his bags already. I think Jack Eichel will help him move. He'll pack his bags for him and be like, get the fuck out of here. This didn't work. Eric Stahl, I agree with Pagniello. He's got some game left. I think a team like Pittsburgh, Philly, like teams like that will probably take a look at him, get a veteran. But Jack Eichel, I think, is going to wait for the summer. He's going to find the perfect moment. He's going to pick out the perfect spot. Maybe when COVID's over, he'll figure out a nice destination, go to the GM, and say, you know what, it's been fun, trade me. This is my only destination I'll go to, make it work, move up in the draft, and I think he'll enjoy his time wherever he goes. But this Buffalo chapter of his career, I think, is slowly coming to an end, and they have themselves to blame for that.
It's been fun, trade me.
You look at the guys like Connor McDavid actually had a playoff series win, had a nice little run, and Jack Eichel, who everyone was comparing him to beforehand, still never played playoff hockey. I feel bad for him.
Yeah, I don't really understand it. I don't know how a guy of that caliber can just not bring any success for the last 5 years. And it's a big question mark. They've always had guys that have kind of been there, they've had potential and they never really lived up to it. Remember, they had Ristolainen's still pretty good, but they had Ristolainen, they had Zadorov at one point. These guys were supposed to be scary defensemen in this league, and then of course that didn't pan out. They had Grigorenko, who was supposed to be good, and he didn't amount to anything. So they've missed a lot in the draft. And again, a lot of people say Eichel's hard to coach, but I don't really know what it is. But if I'm Buffalo, and if I mean, I just don't want to be a Buffalo fan right now. It's just really tough there. But yeah, that's what I wanted to end with. Very negative vibes, but we're Leaf fans, so we're laughing right now. So it's jokes.
Yeah. Gone are the days of Chris Drury, Daniel Briere, Maxim Afinogenov, Ryan Miller. And now the days of Taylor Hall, Jeff Skinner, Eric Stahl, they're alive and well. Gotta love to being a Buffalo fan. So, boys, on that note, going to end this off here. Remember, you can see the handle there, follow In the Zone on social media at ITZ_podcast. And we'll see you next week. And hopefully you enjoyed Mikey's Minute to kick this off. Maybe we'll see something else in the news and Mikey could come back again. But we'll end on that note, guys. This was fun. Take care.